Welcome to Ancient Relics Keeper, where lost truths, ancient mysteries, and forbidden history collide. Let's question the past and uncover what was never meant to be found. Archaeology uncovers the story of our past, but sometimes it finds objects and places that raise more questions than answers. From cryptic stones to impossible structures, these discoveries challenge what we know about our own history and remain unexplained. Among the rolling, windswept hills just north of Glasgow, Scotland, lies a prehistoric artifact that is as baffling as it is significant. Known as the Cockno Stone, it is one of the most complex and mysterious examples of Neolithic rock art in all of Europe. For much of its recent history, this incredible piece of our ancient past has been deliberately hidden from view, buried beneath a protective layer of earth to shield it from the dual threats of modern vandalism and natural erosion. Its story is a frustrating one, a tale of discovery, neglect, and rediscovery that highlights the profound challenges we face in both understanding and preserving the enigmatic messages left behind by our distant ancestors. The Cockno Stone is not a monument of grand scale like Stonehenge or a tomb filled with treasures. It is a sprawling, cryptic canvas of symbols whose meaning has been lost to time, presenting a puzzle that thousands of years of human history have been unable to solve. The discovery, or more accurately, the modern rediscovery of the Cockno Stone, occurred in 1887. It was found by the Reverend James Harvey on a farm belonging to a man named Mr. Miller, on land known as Cockno Farm, from which the stone derives its name. The artifact itself is a massive, gently sloping slab of sandstone, measuring approximately 43 feet by 26 feet. At the time of its discovery, it was already known to local people, but it was Reverend Harvey who first recognized its immense archaeological importance and brought it to the attention of the scientific community. What he saw was a stone surface almost completely covered in a dense and bewildering array of carvings. These were not random scratches, but a deliberate and intricate composition of symbols, primarily of a type known to archaeologists as cup and ring marks. Cup and ring marks are a common feature of Atlantic rock art, found all along the western coasts of Europe, from Spain to Scandinavia. The basic motif consists of a simple, cup-like circular depression carved into the rock, often surrounded by one or more concentric rings. The Cockno Stone, however, takes this basic vocabulary of symbols to an entirely different level of complexity and density. It contains hundreds of these markings, but they are not arranged in any simple or repetitive pattern. Instead, they are interconnected by a labyrinth of grooved lines, forming a sprawling web-like design that covers nearly the entire surface of the stone. There are simple cups, cups surrounded by single rings, and cups surrounded by multiple, complex rings. There are spirals, grids, and even four-toed footprints carved among the abstract symbols. The sheer density of the carvings is what makes the Cockno Stone so unique. It is as if an entire lexicon of prehistoric symbols was meticulously inscribed onto this single, enormous canvas. The initial excitement following its discovery in the late 19th century led to a period of intense study. Antiquarians and archaeologists made casts, drawings, and photographs of the stone, attempting to decipher its meaning. But the stone's fame also became its greatest liability. Located on accessible farmland near a growing industrial area, it became a popular local attraction. Unfortunately, this popularity came at a price. People walked all over the delicate carvings, inadvertently wearing them down. Worse, it became a target for vandalism and graffiti, with modern visitors carving their own names and initials directly over the 5,000-year-old symbols, a tragic act of destruction that added a layer of modern noise to the ancient mystery. By the mid-20th century, the condition of the stone had deteriorated significantly. In 1965, in a move that was both pragmatic and deeply controversial, the archaeologist Ludovic McClellan made the difficult decision to have the stone reburied. He believed that the only way to protect it from further damage was to hide it from the world. A thick layer of soil and turf was carefully placed over the stone, and for the next 50 years, One of Scotland's greatest prehistoric treasures lay hidden beneath an anonymous field, its complex story once again silenced. It was only in 2016 that the stone was temporarily re-excavated by a team of archaeologists using advanced 3D imaging technology to create a precise digital record of its surface before it was once again returned to its protective earthen tomb. The central mystery of the Cockno stone is simple to state but impossible to answer. What does it all mean? The intricate network of symbols represents a deliberate and significant act of communication from a people who lived approximately 5,000 years ago, during the late Neolithic and early Bronze Age. This was a period of profound social and technological change, a time when settled farming communities were well established, and the first great megalithic monuments were being constructed across Britain and Europe. The people who carved the Cockno stone were not primitive cave dwellers. They were a sophisticated society capable of organizing large-scale labor projects and creating complex symbolic systems. The carvings on the stone are the product of immense effort and a shared cultural understanding. They clearly meant something profound to the people who made them, yet that meaning is now entirely lost to us. The primary difficulty in interpreting the symbols is that they do not resemble any known form of writing. There are no letters, no pictograms of recognizable objects like animals or tools that could provide a clue to their meaning. The symbols are entirely abstract cups, rings, spirals, and lines. This has led archaeologists to conclude that the Cockno stone is not a text in the way we would understand it, but a form of symbolic representation, a pre-literate system of communication whose alphabet is composed of geometric shapes. The problem is that we have lost the key to this ancient visual language. We can recognize the individual letters, the cups and rings, but we have no idea how they combine to form words or sentences. We can see the grammar in the way the lines connect the different symbols, but we cannot comprehend the message. The sheer complexity of the stone deepens the mystery. If it were a simple collection of a few symbols, one might dismiss it as decoration or the idle work of a few individuals. But the dense, overlapping, and interconnected nature of the carvings on the Cockno stone suggests a cumulative and coherent purpose. It feels like a single massive composition, yet some researchers believe it may have been created over a long period of time, with different generations adding new layers of symbols, creating a complex, evolving tapestry of meaning. Was it a single grand design or a multi-generational project? Was it intended to be read as a whole, or were different sections meant to be understood independently? The ambiguity of its creation and intended function is at the very heart of its enigma. It is a 5,000-year-old message that we can see but cannot read. A silent and profound testament to the vast gulf of time and understanding that separates us from our Neolithic ancestors. In the absence of any certainty, archaeologists and researchers have proposed a number of compelling, though ultimately unproven, theories to explain the purpose of the Cockno stone. Each theory attempts to provide a framework for understanding the symbols, but none can fully account for the stone's unique complexity. One of the most popular and enduring theories is that the Cockno stone is a form of prehistoric map. Proponents of this idea suggest that the carvings represent the surrounding landscape as it was seen by the Neolithic inhabitants. In this interpretation, the cups might represent individual settlements or homesteads, while the rings around them could delineate their agricultural lands or territories. The connecting lines could be pathways, rivers, or territorial boundaries. Some have gone even further, suggesting the stone is not a map of the earth, but of the heavens. They propose that the cups and spirals represent stars and constellations, and the entire stone is a form of ancient astronomical chart, perhaps used to track the movements of the sun, moon, and stars for agricultural or ritual purposes. The appeal of the map theory is that it provides a logical and practical explanation for the complex network of interconnected symbols. The main argument against it, however, is that it is impossible to definitively match the symbols on the stone to any known features of the local landscape or the night sky. The connections are speculative and rely on a great deal of interpretation. A second major school of thought suggests that the stone's purpose was primarily ritualistic and religious. In this view, the carvings were not meant to be read as a map, but to be used as a sacred site for communal ceremonies. The cup-like depressions may have been used to hold offerings, perhaps of grain, milk, or even blood. Some researchers have suggested that liquids could have been poured onto the stone, with the interconnected grooves and channels directing the flow in a specific, meaningful pattern, a form of ancient divination or libation ritual. The act of carving the stone itself could have been a deeply spiritual practice, a way of connecting with the earth, the ancestors, or the divine. The spirals and concentric rings are common symbols in many ancient cultures, often associated with concepts of life, death, rebirth, or the journey of the soul. The Cognos stone, therefore, might have been a sacred altar, a place where the community gathered at key moments in the year to perform the rituals that ensured the fertility of their land and the well-being of their people. This theory is compelling because it acknowledges the likely spiritual significance of such a monumental undertaking, but it is inherently difficult to prove, as the beliefs and rituals of a pre-literate society leave behind few tangible traces. A third, more recent theory draws on ethnographic parallels from other cultures and ideas from cognitive archaeology. This perspective suggests that the symbols might not have a single, fixed meaning, but were part of a more fluid system of knowledge and storytelling. The stone could have been a mnemonic device, a tool used by shamans or tribal elders to recount genealogies, myths, or important historical events. The abstract symbols might have acted as memory triggers, each one corresponding to a part of a story or a piece of sacred knowledge. This theory also raises the possibility that the carvings are related to altered states of consciousness. The swirling spirals and repetitive geometric patterns are strikingly similar to the entoptic phenomena, the visual effects generated within the eye itself, that people often experience during trances, meditation, or after consuming hallucinogenic plants. The stone, in this interpretation, could be a map not of the external world, but of the internal spiritual world, a record of shamanic journeys or mystical experiences. Ultimately, all of these theories remain speculative. The Cognos stone's true purpose may be a combination of some of these ideas, or it may be something else entirely that we are currently unable to conceive. Its reburial, while necessary for its preservation, has added another layer of frustration to the mystery. The digital model created in 2016 provides a perfect record for future study, but it cannot replace the experience of seeing and interacting with the physical object itself. The Cognos stone stands as a profound and humbling reminder of the limits of our knowledge. It is a masterpiece of prehistoric art, a complex system of ancient communication, and an enduring enigma. It challenges our assumptions about the intellectual and spiritual lives of our Neolithic ancestors and forces us to accept that some secrets of the past may be lost to us forever, buried not only under a layer of Scottish soil, but under the immense weight of 5,000 years of silence. In the sun-drenched landscape of Andalusia in southern Spain, near the historic town of Antequera, lie three of the most remarkable and enigmatic structures of prehistoric Europe. Known as the Antequera dolmens, these are not just ancient tombs. They are masterpieces of megalithic engineering and monuments of a belief system that deliberately broke with a continent-wide tradition. Constructed during the Neolithic and Copper Ages, roughly between 5,000 and 4,000 years ago, these tombs, the Menga dolmen, the Vieira dolmen, and the Tholos of El Romeral, represent an extraordinary achievement of a people who possessed no metal tools, no wheels, and no written language. While all megalithic structures pose questions about the technology and beliefs of their creators, the Antequera dolmens, particularly the Menga dolmen, present a unique and profound mystery that challenges our understanding of the sacred landscape of prehistoric Europe. Their construction is a feat of engineering that verges on the impossible for its time, but it is their unique astronomical and geographical alignment that truly sets them apart, revealing a community with a worldview that was both deeply sophisticated and radically different from that of their contemporaries. The Antequera dolmens were granted UNESCO World Heritage status in 2016, a testament to their global significance. The three tombs represent different architectural styles and were likely built over a period of many centuries, showing an evolution in both technique and perhaps belief. The Vieira dolmen is a classic passage grave, with a long stone-lined corridor leading to a rectangular burial chamber. The Tholos of El Romeral, the youngest of the three, is a tholos or beehive-shaped tomb, constructed from smaller, skillfully layered stones and capped with a massive stone slab, a style more common in the Mediterranean. But it is the Menga dolmen, the largest and oldest of the trio, that commands the most attention and presents the deepest mystery. Menga is one of the largest megalithic structures in all of Europe. It is an enormous chamber tomb, approximately 82 feet long, constructed from 32 massive upright megaliths or orthostats, which form the walls. The entire structure is covered by a colossal roof made of 5 enormous capstones, the largest of which is estimated to weigh a staggering 180 tons. The chamber itself is vast, an artificial cave of stone, leading to a deep, oval-shaped burial chamber at the rear. The sheer scale of the undertaking is difficult to comprehend. The stones were quarried from a location several kilometers away, transported over difficult terrain, and then lifted and positioned with incredible precision. The engineering prowess required to move and lift a 180-ton stone using only levers, ropes, and human muscle power is a mystery in itself, a testament to the remarkable organizational skills and unwavering determination of the society that built it. However, the central mystery of the Antequera dolmens, and of Menga in particular, is not how they were built, but why they were oriented in the way they are. Across the vast majority of Neolithic Europe, from the passage graves of Ireland to the stone circles of Britain, there is a consistent and powerful tradition of solar alignment. The entrances of tombs and the axes of stone circles are almost invariably oriented towards a significant solar event, most commonly the sunrise on the winter or summer solstice, or the equinoxes. This widespread practice indicates a shared pan-European belief system centered on the cycles of the sun, a cosmology that linked the journey of the dead with the annual rebirth of the light. It was a way of embedding their sacred structures within the rhythms of the cosmos, aligning the human world with the divine order of the heavens. The Menga dolmen deliberately and spectacularly defies this tradition. Its entrance does not face east to greet the rising sun. Instead, it is oriented to the northeast, aimed with remarkable precision at a specific and highly unusual natural landmark. This landmark is a prominent mountain peak known as La Pena de los Enamorados, or the Lover's Rock. What makes this mountain so significant is its unmistakable shape. When viewed from the direction of the dolmen, the profile of La Pena bears an uncanny resemblance to a massive human face lying in repose, looking up at the sky. It is a natural anthropomorphic sculpture, a face carved by nature itself. The builders of the Menga dolmen chose to ignore a thousands of years old tradition of celestial alignment, and instead oriented their most sacred ancestral tomb to face this sacred mountain. This was not an accident or a miscalculation. The alignment is precise. It represents a conscious, deliberate choice to connect their world of the dead not with the sky, but with the earth. Not with a celestial cycle, but with a terrestrial landmark that they perceived as having a sacred human-like form. This radical departure from the norm is the core of the Antequera mystery. It forces us to ask, what was so important about this mountain that it could supplant the sun as the focal point of their entire cosmology? The leading theory to explain this unique orientation is that the builders of Menga practiced a form of landscape worship, or sacred geography. In this view, their belief system was not centered on the abstract, celestial bodies of the sky, but was deeply rooted in the specific features of their own local environment. They did not just live on the land. They lived in a sacred landscape, a world where certain mountains, rivers, and caves were imbued with divine power and personality. La Peña, with its striking resemblance to a human face, would have been the most powerful and sacred feature in their entire world. It was a lithopeña, a sacred manifestation in stone, perhaps seen as a sleeping giant, a primordial ancestor, or a Tonian earth deity. By aligning the dolmen to face La Peña, they were creating a powerful symbolic and spiritual connection. The tomb, the house of their revered ancestors, was positioned to perpetually gaze upon the face of their earth god. The spirits of the dead were not intended to journey towards the rising sun, but to be eternally linked to the sacred mountain that was the source of the land's power and fertility. This theory is supported by the fact that the two other Antequera dolmens also have unusual, non-solar alignments. The Tholos of El Romeral is oriented towards the El Torcal mountain range, another significant local landmark, while the Vieira dolmen is one of the few that does have a more conventional solar alignment, suggesting that perhaps different belief systems coexisted or evolved over the centuries that the complex was in use. This theory of landscape worship is compelling because it provides a coherent explanation for the observed facts. It suggests that the Antequera community developed a unique and highly localized cosmology, a belief system that was intimately tied to the place they inhabited. While other European cultures looked to the universal and predictable cycles of the sun, the people of Antequera created a religion that was bespoke to their own environment. This does not necessarily make them more or less sophisticated than their contemporaries, but it makes them distinctively different. It highlights the diversity of belief in prehistoric Europe and challenges the idea of a single monolithic megalithic religion. However, while this theory explains the what, it still leaves the why as an open question. Why did this specific community, in this specific place, develop such a unique worldview? What was it about their society or their environment that led them to reject a tradition that was so deeply entrenched across the rest of the continent? One possibility is that the sheer presence of a landmark as dramatic and anthropomorphic as La Peña was simply too powerful to ignore. The mountain's face may have been such a dominant and awe-inspiring feature of their daily lives that it naturally became the central focus of their spiritual world, supplanting the more abstract power of the sun. Another possibility is that it reflects a different social or political structure. The construction of the Menga dolmen was an immense communal effort, requiring the mobilization of hundreds of people over a long period. This suggests a highly organized society with a strong leadership, perhaps a powerful chieftain or a priestly class. It is possible that this unique alignment was a deliberate political or religious statement, a way for the leaders of the Antequera community to distinguish themselves from their neighbors and to assert their own unique identity and power, which they derived not from a universal sun god, but from their special relationship with the sacred mountain. The tomb's orientation could have been a way of saying, "Our power comes from this land, from this sacred place, and it is different from yours." The mystery is further deepened by the scale of the engineering involved. The decision to build such a massive structure, using 180-ton capstones, was not a trivial one. It was a colossal investment of time, resources, and labor. The society that built Menga was clearly capable of incredible feats. This raises the question of whether their engineering prowess and their unique cosmology were linked. Did their ability to move mountains of stone give them a different perspective on their relationship with the earth? Did they see themselves not just as inhabitants of the landscape, but as shapers of it, capable of creating their own sacred mountains in the form of their tombs, and aligning them with the natural ones? The Antequera dolmens, therefore, stand as a profound challenge to our generalizations about the prehistoric world. They are a testament to a community that possessed not only incredible technical skill, but also a unique spiritual vision. They chose to build one of the largest and most ambitious structures of their time, and to orient it according to a set of rules that were entirely their own. They looked at their world and saw divinity not just in the sky, but in the very bones of the earth, in a mountain that looked back at them with a human face. The dolmens are a silent monument to this lost worldview, a powerful reminder that the past is not a monolithic story, but a rich tapestry of diverse and often contradictory beliefs. The core question of why this community broke so radically with the continent-wide tradition remains unanswered, a testament to the enduring mystery and the proud, independent spirit of the people who built these magnificent tombs. On a commanding hillside overlooking the warm, turquoise waters of the Gulf of Mexico, in the modern state of Veracruz, lies the ancient Totonac city of Cuayahuiztlan. The name in the Nahuatl language translates to the place of the rains, a fitting descriptor for a location that often sees dramatic tropical storms sweep in from the sea. Occupied primarily during the classic and post-classic periods of Mesoamerican history, from roughly 400 to 1200 AD, Cuayahuiztlan was a site of considerable strategic importance. It served as a fortress, a commercial port, and a religious center for the Totonac people, a civilization that flourished in this coastal region long before the arrival of the Aztecs or the Spanish. While the site boasts impressive plazas, ball courts, and stepped pyramids typical of Mesoamerican urban centers, its most remarkable and enigmatic feature is found in its extensive and utterly unique cemetery. Here, scattered across the terraced slopes of the hill, are dozens of what appear to be miniature temples, each one serving as a tomb. This bizarre and fascinating form of funerary architecture is found nowhere else in the ancient Americas, presenting a profound mystery that challenges our understanding of Totonac beliefs about death, the afterlife, and the sacred nature of their own architecture. The first encounter with the Cuayahuiztlan cemetery is a surreal experience. From a distance, the hillside appears to be dotted with small stone model buildings, like an architectural maquette left out in the open. As one gets closer, the true nature of these structures becomes clear. They are tombs, but they are designed and built to be perfect, small-scale replicas of full-sized Mesoamerican temples or pyramids. They range in size from just a few feet high to more substantial structures, but all share the same basic architectural vocabulary. They feature the characteristic talatablero style of sloping bases and vertical friezes, miniature stairways leading up to the summit, and small shrine-like structures at the top. In essence, the Totonac of Cuayahuiztlan did not just bury their dead. They provided each of them with their own personal, miniature temple for eternity. The construction of these tombs was a meticulous and labor-intensive process. They were built from carefully cut and shaped stones, often volcanic rock, and covered with a smooth layer of stucco plaster, much of which has survived the centuries of exposure to the humid, salty air. Originally, these stucco surfaces would have been brightly painted with religious symbols and geometric patterns, and traces of red and blue pigments can still be seen on some of the more sheltered examples. Inside these miniature temples, archaeologists have found the remains of the deceased, often interred with offerings such as ceramic vessels, obsidian blades, and personal ornaments. The tombs were clearly intended for the city's elite, the rulers, priests, and high-ranking warriors who could command the resources and skilled labor necessary to construct such elaborate final resting places. The site is a necropolis, a city of the dead, designed to mirror the sacred architecture of a city of the living. The central mystery of Cuayahuiztlan is not who was buried here, but why they were buried in this extraordinary and unparalleled fashion. The practice of creating elaborate tombs for the elite is common to nearly every ancient civilization. The Egyptians had their pyramids, the Maya had their temple tombs, and the Moche of Peru had their adobe huacas. In all these cases, however, the tomb itself was a full-size structure, a monumental building that housed the remains of a powerful ruler. The concept of creating a cemetery composed of dozens of miniature, symbolic temples is what makes Cuayahuiztlan so unique. This was not a tradition borrowed from their neighbors or inherited from their predecessors. It appears to be a local innovation, a distinctively Totonac solution to the universal problem of how to honor the dead and ensure their safe passage into the afterlife. The core question is, What was the belief system that led this specific community to develop such a singular and visually stunning funerary practice? What did it mean to provide the dead with a tiny personal temple? The leading theory to explain this unique practice revolves around the Totonac conception of the soul and the afterlife. In many Mesoamerican belief systems, death was not seen as an end, but as a transition to another plane of existence. The soul, or a component of it, was believed to journey through a perilous underworld before reaching its final destination. To aid the deceased on this journey, the living had a duty to provide them with the necessary tools, offerings, and sacred protection. It is possible that the miniature temples of Cuyahoga were intended to function as spiritual powerhouses for the souls of the dead. A full-size temple was a place where the living could communicate with the gods, a point of connection between the earthly realm and the divine realm. By providing the deceased with their own personal temple, the Totonac may have believed they were equipping them with a perpetual source of sacred energy, a personal conduit to the gods that would protect and guide them through the dangers of the underworld. The tomb was not just a house for the body, it was a sacred engine for the soul. This theory suggests a fascinating and highly personalized view of the afterlife. Instead of the dead being interred in a single communal sacred space, each elite individual was granted their own private connection to the divine. The cemetery on the hillside would have been seen as a potent and sacred landscape, bristling with the concentrated spiritual energy of dozens of individual shrines. It was a community of ancestral spirits, each residing in their own sacred dwelling, collectively watching over the living city below. This would have served a powerful social and political purpose as well. For the living descendants, the impressive array of ancestral tombs would have been a constant and visible reminder of their lineage, their power, and their inherited right to rule. It was a form of ancestor veneration made manifest in stone, a way of legitimizing the power of the ruling class by physically demonstrating their deep connection to the venerated dead. Another, related theory suggests that the practice was a form of symbolic substitution. It is possible that in an earlier period, the Totonac, like the Maya, buried their most powerful rulers within the foundations of actual full-sized pyramids. This was a hugely resource-intensive practice, requiring the construction of a massive new temple for each deceased king. Over time, as the population grew and the ruling elite expanded, this may have become impractical. The miniature temple tombs could have been a clever and efficient innovation, a way to continue the tradition of providing the dead with a sacred pyramid, but in a symbolic, scaled-down form. This would have allowed a much larger number of elite individuals to receive this high-status burial, without requiring the enormous expenditure of labor and resources needed for a full-sized pyramid. It was a way of democratizing access to a sacred afterlife, at least for the upper echelons of society. This theory is supported by the fact that the tombs at Cuyahoga are not all uniform. They show variations in size and complexity, which likely correspond to the varying status and wealth of the individuals buried within them. A powerful ruler might have a larger, more elaborate miniature temple, while a lesser nobleman or a high priest might have a smaller, simpler one. The cemetery, therefore, would have been a microcosm of the city's social hierarchy, a map of the power structure of the living, perfectly replicated in the city of the dead. A third line of speculation focuses on the specific location of the site. Cuyahoga occupies a dramatic and highly defensible position, on a hill that dominates the coastal plain. It is a liminal space, a place that sits between the land and the sea, between the world of the living and the spirit world. The Totonac may have believed that this specific location was a natural portal to the underworld. By constructing their necropolis on this sacred hill, they were placing their dead at the very threshold of the afterlife. The temple tombs, in this interpretation, were not just symbolic dwellings, but were intended to be functional spiritual vehicles, designed to help the soul make the crossing from one realm to the next. The concentration of so many tombs in one place would have transformed the entire hill into a massive funerary monument, a powerful sacred site whose influence would have been felt for miles around. It is also important to consider the historical context. Quiahuiztlan rose to prominence during a period of great change and interaction between the different cultures of Mesoamerica. It was a contemporary of the great city of Teotihuacan in the Central Highlands, and was an important trading partner for many Maya city-states. The Totonac were known as skilled artists and architects, and it is possible that the unique style of Quiahuiztlan was a deliberate expression of their own distinct cultural identity. In a world of powerful neighbors, creating a unique and spectacular form of funerary architecture could have been a way for the Totonac to assert their own cultural and artistic independence, a statement that they were not just imitators of the great powers, but innovators with their own powerful traditions. Despite these compelling theories, the central mystery of Quiahuiztlan endures because the practice remains so completely unique. If the belief system that inspired it was so powerful, why do we not see it replicated at other Totonac sites? Was it a practice confined only to this specific city, and if so, why? Did it represent the beliefs of a particular ruling dynasty, or a specific religious cult that held power in Quiahuiztlan for a time before its influence faded? The answers to these questions may be lost forever, as the Totonac, like so many other Mesoamerican cultures, did not have a written language in the alphabetic sense. Their beliefs were encoded in their art, their architecture, and their complex iconography, and we are left to decipher the meaning from the silent stone. The miniature temples of Quiahuiztlan stand as a beautiful and haunting testament to the creativity and spiritual depth of the Totonac people. They are a unique solution to the universal human quest for immortality, a city of tiny, personal pyramids built for the souls of the dead, whose full and true meaning remains one of the most elegant and unsolved puzzles of ancient America. Stretching along the arid, wind-battered coast of southern Peru lies one of the most enigmatic and visually stunning artifacts of the ancient Americas, the Paracas candelabra, known locally as the Candelabro de Paracas. This colossal geoglyph, a design etched into the hardened sand of a sloping hillside, is a testament to the ingenuity and mysterious beliefs of a people who lived and thrived in this challenging environment over 2,000 years ago. While Peru is famous for its other, more extensive collection of geoglyphs, the Nazca lines, the Paracas candelabra stands apart. It is a singular monumental figure, distinct in its style, its location, and its profound and enduring mystery. Despite decades of study, its purpose, its precise age, and even the identity of its creators remain subjects of intense debate, making it one of the most baffling and captivating puzzles in South American archaeology. The physical presence of the candelabra is awe-inspiring. The figure is enormous, measuring approximately 600 feet, about 183 meters, in height, so large that its true form can only be properly appreciated from a distance. It is etched into the northern face of the Paracas Peninsula, a stark and barren landscape that juts out into the Pacific Ocean. The design itself is elegant and complex. It consists of a central vertical staff or trunk, from which two smaller, symmetrical branches curve upwards on either side. At the top of the central staff in each of the two branches, another set of smaller, radiating lines creates a crown-like effect. This has led to its popular name, the candelabra, due to its resemblance to a three-branched candlestick. However, others see it as a trident, a stylized tree, or some other symbolic object. The lines that form the figure are not shallow scratches. They are deep trenches, dug to a depth of about 2 feet into the petrified, salt-encrusted sand of the hillside. The constant, strong winds that sweep in from the ocean have kept the lines remarkably clear of sand, preserving the figure in a near-perfect state for centuries. Its orientation is also significant. It faces the sea, positioned in such a way that it would be clearly visible to sailors and fishermen miles out on the Pacific. The central mystery of the Paracas candelabra begins with the fundamental questions of who created it and when. Unlike the Nazca lines, which have been extensively studied and are firmly attributed to the Nazca culture, c. 100 BC 800 AD, the candelabra's origins are much more ambiguous. The Paracas Peninsula was the heartland of the earlier Paracas culture, c. 800 BC 100 BC, a civilization renowned for its exquisite textiles and sophisticated cranial surgery. The most direct evidence for dating the geoglyph comes from pottery fragments found in the immediate vicinity of the figure, which have been stylistically dated to the Paracas period, around 200 BC. This has led most archaeologists to attribute the candelabra to the Paracas culture. However, this attribution is not without its problems. The candelabra's style is quite different from the typical animal and human figures found in Paracas art and textiles. It is more abstract, more geometric, and monumental in a way that is unique. This has led some researchers to question whether it might have been created by a later culture, or perhaps by a specific unknown group living on the peninsula. The lack of any definitive, associated organic material that can be carbon dated means its age remains an educated estimate, rather than a scientific certainty. Even more profound than the mystery of its creators is the mystery of its meaning. Why did an ancient culture invest such an enormous amount of coordinated labor to carve this specific massive symbol into a hillside? The figure is clearly not a random doodle. It is a deliberate and powerful statement, intended to be seen from a great distance. But what message was it intended to convey? The problem is that the symbol itself is open to a multitude of interpretations, and without any written records from the Paracas culture, we are left to decipher its meaning from context and conjecture. This has given rise to a number of competing theories, each of which is compelling in its own way, but none of which can be definitively proven. One of the most pragmatic and long-standing theories is that the candelabra served as a navigational aid for ancient sailors. The coast of Peru can be treacherous, with strong currents and frequent fog. A landmark as large and distinct as the candelabra, clearly visible from the sea, could have been an invaluable tool for mariners. It could have served as a giant signpost, signaling the location of the Paracas Peninsula and guiding sailors to a safe harbor or a specific trading point. The Bay of Paracas was a rich source of fish, shellfish, and guano, bird droppings used as fertilizer, and was likely a major center of maritime activity for the ancient cultures of the region. A geoglyph of this scale would have been an unmistakable beacon, a man-made landmark that could be seen long before the subtle features of the coastline became visible. This theory is appealing because it provides a practical, functional explanation for the figure's enormous size and its seaward orientation. The main argument against it, however, is that it seems overly elaborate for a simple navigational marker. Ancient sailors were skilled navigators who used the sun, the stars, and their intimate knowledge of the coastline to find their way. It is unclear why they would have needed a landmark of such symbolic complexity when a simpler shape, like a large triangle or circle, would have served the same purpose. The highly stylized, trident-like form of the candelabra suggests a meaning that goes beyond mere practicality. A second, more symbolic theory connects the geoglyph to the religious beliefs of the Paracas people, and specifically to a powerful local god. The trident is a symbol of power and divinity in many cultures around the world, most famously associated with the Greek god Poseidon and the Roman god Neptune, deities of the sea. It is possible that the Paracas candelabra is a representation of a similar deity, a powerful god of the sea and storms who was worshipped by the local fishing communities. By carving this massive effigy of his symbol into the hillside, they would have been creating a powerful offering, a permanent tribute designed to appease the god and ensure bountiful catches and safe passage on the water. This interpretation links the figure directly to the maritime lifestyle of the people who likely created it and explains its symbolic, rather than purely functional form. An alternative version of this religious theory connects the symbol not to the sea, but to the great Andean creator god Viracocha. In some Andean myths, Viracocha carried a staff of power or a lightning bolt, often depicted with 3 prongs. The candelabra could be a representation of this divine staff, a symbol of the Creator God's power over the earth and the sky. The Paracas Peninsula was seen as a sacred place, a liminal zone between the vast ocean and the towering Andes Mountains. Placing a massive symbol of the Creator God in such a location would have been a way of marking the entire landscape as sacred territory. However, the worship of Viracocha is more strongly associated with later Andean cultures like the Inca, and its prominence during the earlier Paracas period is less certain. A third and more intriguing theory delves into the world of shamanism and altered states of consciousness. The Paracas culture, like many ancient societies in the Americas, is known to have used hallucinogenic plants in its religious rituals. One of the most potent plants native to the region is the Jimson weed, Datura stramonium, a powerful psychoactive that was used by shamans to induce visions and communicate with the spirit world. The theory proposes that the candelabra is not a representation of a candlestick or a trident, but a highly stylized, monumental depiction of the Jimson weed plant itself. The central staff would be the plant stalk, the side branches would be its leaves, and the radiating lines at the top could represent its trumpet-shaped flowers. In this interpretation, the geoglyph would be a massive tribute to the sacred plant that was the key to the shaman's spiritual power. It was a signpost not for sailors on the sea, but for shamans on their journeys into the spirit world, a symbol of the source of their visions and their connection to the divine. This theory is compelling because it connects the abstract form of the geoglyph to a known element of local ritual practice and provides a powerful explanation for its symbolic importance. Finally, some researchers have proposed that the candelabra could be a form of astronomical calendar or observatory. The various branches and lines of the figure could have been used to track the movements of the sun, moon, and stars, marking significant dates like the solstices or equinoxes. The shadow cast by the figure at different times of the day and year could have been used to create a giant sundial, allowing the priests or shamans to maintain a sacred calendar. The main challenge to this theory is the complexity of demonstrating these alignments with any statistical significance. Without a clear understanding of which celestial bodies were important to the Paracas people, it is difficult to prove that the alignments are intentional rather than coincidental. The Paracas candelabra thus remains a profound and multifaceted mystery. Its sheer scale and elegance are undeniable, a testament to the sophisticated vision and organizational capacity of its creators. Yet, its fundamental purpose remains elusive, hidden behind the veil of a lost belief system. Was it a practical guide for sailors, a religious offering to a forgotten god of the sea, a monumental symbol of a sacred plant, or a complex astronomical device? It could be one of these, a combination of several, or something else entirely that we are not yet equipped to understand. Unlike the Nazca lines, which present a gallery of different figures, the candelabra is a singular, emphatic statement. It stands alone, a silent and majestic question mark etched into the Peruvian coast, a powerful reminder that even the most monumental artifacts of the past do not always give up their secrets easily. It is a mystery that continues to captivate the imagination, inviting us to look beyond the obvious and to consider the complex and often enigmatic ways in which ancient people sought to make their mark upon the world. In the stark high-altitude desert of the Bolivian Altiplano, under the shadow of the majestic snow-capped Sajama volcano, lies a landscape etched with one of the most extensive and perplexing works of land art ever created. Known as the Sajama lines, this is not a single figure or a small collection of designs, but a vast and intricate network of thousands upon thousands of perfectly straight lines, crisscrossing the earth for miles in every direction. Created over a period of some 3,000 years by the indigenous people who lived in this challenging environment, long before the rise of the Inca Empire, the Sajama lines represent a monumental investment of time, labor, and coordinated effort. Yet, their purpose remains a profound and enduring mystery. They are not roads, they are not irrigation channels, and they are not defensive structures. They are a silent, sprawling testament to a lost belief system, a sacred geometry inscribed upon the earth on a scale that is almost impossible to comprehend, leaving modern researchers to grapple with the fundamental question: why did an ancient people dedicate generations of effort to creating this immense and enigmatic network of pathways to nowhere? The sheer scale of the Sahama lines is what sets them apart from other geoglyphs found around the world. The network covers an area of approximately 8,700 square miles, about 22,500 square kilometers, an area roughly 10 times larger than the famous Nazca lines in neighboring Peru. The lines themselves are not enormous trenches. They were created by a simple but effective method. The high-altitude soil of the Altiplano has a dark, oxidized surface layer covering a lighter subsurface soil. The creators of the lines simply scraped away the dark topsoil, exposing the lighter soil beneath, creating a visible contrast. The individual lines typically range from 3 to 10 feet in width and can run for astonishing distances. Some are short, connecting specific points, while others continue in a perfectly straight line for up to 10 miles, disappearing over the horizon. What is particularly remarkable is the precision with which these lines were laid out. They maintain their straightness with an incredible degree of accuracy, even as they traverse difficult and uneven terrain, going up and down hills and across valleys without deviating from their course. This implies the use of sophisticated surveying techniques, likely involving pairs of sighting posts, to maintain their trajectory over such vast distances. The layout of the network is not random. It is a complex and structured system. The lines radiate outwards from significant points in the landscape, such as hilltops, ancestral tombs, known as chulpas, small shrines, and ancient settlements. They intersect and overlap, creating a dense, web-like pattern that connects hundreds, if not thousands, of these culturally significant points across the vast expanse of the Altiplano. From the ground, the full extent of the network is impossible to grasp. An individual walking along one line would simply see a straight path stretching before and behind them. It is only from a high vantage point, or more effectively through satellite imagery, that the true breathtaking complexity and scale of the entire system becomes apparent. This has led some researchers to describe the Sahama lines as the largest single work of art in the world, a vast and sacred map inscribed upon the surface of the planet. The central mystery of the Sahama lines is their function. The immense labor involved in their creation, sustained over a period of 3 millennia by various indigenous groups including the ancestors of the modern Aymara people, clearly indicates that they served a powerful and deeply important social and religious purpose. But what was it? The most obvious explanations are the first to be dismissed. They are not roads in any practical sense. They are often too narrow, too steep, or lead to inaccessible places to have been used for transporting goods or people in a conventional way. Furthermore, they often run parallel to each other, a feature that makes no sense for a transportation network. They are not irrigation canals, as they are not designed to carry water, and do not follow the contours of the land in a way that would be effective for agriculture. They are not defensive structures as they offer no protection and, in fact, seem to lead directly to important sites, effectively advertising their location. The purpose of the Sahama lines was clearly not utilitarian. It was symbolic, spiritual, and ritualistic. The leading theory, supported by a combination of archaeological evidence and ethnographic studies of modern Andean spiritual practices, is that the Sahama lines were sacred pathways, or sikhs. The concept of the Sikh system is most famously associated with the later Inca Empire, whose capital Cusco was seen as the navel of the universe, with invisible straight lines of power radiating outwards to connect hundreds of sacred shrines, or huacas. The Sahama lines are now believed to be a much older and far more extensive precursor to this Inca system. In this interpretation, the entire landscape of the Altiplano was seen as a sacred space, a living entity imbued with spiritual power. The lines were the threads that connected the sacred points within this landscape, the tombs of the ancestors, the peaks of the mountains, seen as powerful deities or apis, the springs and the shrines into a single coherent whole. According to this theory, the lines were created to be walked upon. They were ceremonial pathways used for religious processions and pilgrimages. A community might gather at its village and walk in a solemn procession along a specific line to a particular ancestral tomb to make offerings and perform rituals. Different lines may have been used at different times of the year, corresponding to a complex ritual calendar. A shaman might walk a line to a sacred hilltop to commune with the mountain spirits. The act of walking the line itself would have been a deeply spiritual experience, a form of prayer or meditation that physically connected the individual and the community to the sacred geography of their world. The lines were not just a map of their spiritual world. They were the very means by which that world was activated and engaged with. This theory is compelling because it aligns with the known principles of Andean cosmology, which emphasizes the deep spiritual connection between people, the landscape, and the ancestors. It explains why the lines connect sacred points and why they had to be perfectly straight, as a straight line represents the most direct and powerful connection between 2 points of spiritual energy. However, while the Sikh theory provides a powerful framework for understanding the lines, it does not fully resolve the mystery. The sheer scale and density of the network still beggar belief. Why was it necessary to create so many lines? The number is estimated to be well over 10,000. The total length, if all the lines were added together, would be thousands of miles. The system seems almost impossibly redundant, with multiple lines often leading to or from the same point. This has led some researchers to suggest that the act of creating the lines was just as important, if not more so, than the act of walking them. In this view, the construction of a line was itself a form of ritual, a community-building exercise, and a devotional offering. A family or a kin group might create a new line to honor a deceased elder, connecting their tomb to a sacred mountain, thereby physically embedding their ancestor into the sacred fabric of the landscape. A community might create a line as a prayer for a good harvest or to give thanks for the birth of a child. Over thousands of years, these individual acts of devotion, performed by countless generations, would have accumulated to create the incredibly dense network we see today. The Sahama lines, therefore, would be a physical record of 3 millennia of prayers, genealogies, and social contracts, a testament to the enduring faith of a people and their deep relationship with their land. This theory helps to explain the density and seemingly chaotic overlap of the network, seeing it not as a single master plan design, but as an organic, cumulative creation, like a multi-generational sacred text written on the earth. Another intriguing aspect of the mystery is the incredible precision of the lines. The ability of the ancient Sahama people to lay out perfectly straight lines over miles of difficult terrain without modern surveying equipment is a testament to their skill. But it also raises the question of perspective. The true, awe-inspiring nature of the network, its vast interconnectedness, is something that can only be appreciated from a high altitude. This has inevitably led to more speculative fringe theories, most famously those proposed by writers like Eric von Daniken, who suggested that the lines could only have been designed or used by beings capable of flight, implying an extraterrestrial connection. These theories, while popular in some circles, have no scientific basis and are rejected by mainstream archaeology. There is no evidence of any kind to support an alien visitation, and the techniques required to create the lines, while skillful, are well within the capabilities of ancient human societies. The real mystery is not about aliens. It is about the human mind and the power of belief. The Sahama people did not need to see the entire network from above to understand its significance. Their understanding was not based on a bird's-eye view, but on a lifetime of walking the lines, of participating in the rituals, and of hearing the stories associated with each pathway. Their map of the world was not a visual one, but a cognitive and spiritual one, carried in their collective memory. The lines were the physical manifestation of this mental map. The final, and perhaps most poignant, part of the mystery is why the practice eventually ceased. With the rise of the Inca Empire in the 15th century, and the subsequent Spanish conquest in the 16th, the traditional belief systems of the Sahama people were suppressed and replaced by new religions and new social orders. The ancient rituals were forbidden, and the sacred meaning of the lines began to fade from collective memory. While some traditions of landscape veneration persist in the Andes today, the specific knowledge and purpose of the vast Sahama network has been lost. The lines remain silent and enigmatic, a testament to a lost world of faith. They are a profound and humbling reminder of the sheer scale and dedication that ancient people could bring to their spiritual endeavors. The Sahama lines are more than just an archaeological puzzle. They are a challenge to our modern perspective, forcing us to consider that for some cultures, the most important journeys were not those that led to a physical destination, but those that connected them to the sacred, unseen forces of the world around them. In the annals of archaeology, there are discoveries that refine our understanding of the past, and then there are those that threaten to shatter it entirely. These are the out-of-place artifacts, or OOPRs, objects whose reported discovery in a specific geological or historical context seems utterly impossible according to the established scientific timeline of human history. While the vast majority of these claims are eventually debunked as misinterpretations, hoaxes, or simple errors, a few persist as stubborn and intriguing anomalies. Among the most famous and controversial of these is a small, unassuming object known as the Nampa image, a skillfully crafted clay figurine reportedly recovered from a depth that places it in an age long before modern humans are believed to have existed, let alone to have been creating art in North America. The story of the Nampa image is a clash between a seemingly straightforward eyewitness account and the entire edifice of modern paleoanthropology, presenting a puzzle that forces us to question either the reliability of the discovery or the completeness of our own origin story. The discovery of the Nampa image occurred in the summer of 1889 in Nampa, Idaho, a small town that was then part of the expanding American West. A group of men, under the direction of Mr. M. A. Kurtz, were engaged in a well drilling operation seeking water. As their steam-powered drill bored deeper and deeper into the earth, it passed through various layers of soil and rock. At a reported depth of approximately 300 feet, about 91 meters, the steam pump, which was being used to clear the borehole of loose debris, ejected a small, curious object along with the sand and clay. This object was a tiny clay figurine, just 1.5 inches long. It was a partial figure, depicting a human form from the waist up, missing one arm and one leg, but what remained was remarkably detailed. It was clearly of human manufacture, modeled with a clear sense of artistry and proportion. The figurine depicted a female figure with well-defined shoulders, breasts, and a head, though the facial features were indistinct. The surface bore faint traces of iron oxide, suggesting it may have once been colored. The significance of the find was immediately recognized by one of the individuals present, Mr. G.M. Cumming of Boise, who was a prominent citizen and president of the local historical society. He understood that the depth at which the object was found was of critical importance. The geological strata at 300 feet in that location belonged to the Glens Ferry Formation, a layer of clay and silt deposited during the Pliocene-Pleistocene transition. The accepted geological age of this formation is approximately 2 million years old. This was the crux of the issue. According to the entire body of scientific knowledge, both in 1889 and today, there were no anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens, anywhere on Earth 2 million years ago, let alone in North America. Our earliest direct ancestors, such as Homo habilis, were just beginning to evolve in Africa at that time. The first human migration into the Americas is believed to have occurred much more recently, perhaps only 20,000 to 30,000 years ago. To find a skillfully crafted work of art, which implies the presence of a creature with modern human intelligence and artistic sensibility, in a 2-million-year-old geological layer in Idaho was, and remains, a scientific impossibility. The central mystery of the Nampa image is therefore a stark and irreconcilable conflict. On one hand, we have the direct testimony of the men who were present at the well drilling site. They reported, in a seemingly straightforward manner, that the object was ejected by the pump from a depth of 300 feet. The object itself is undeniably of human manufacture, and analysis has shown it to be made of fired clay, with quartz grains that are fused and altered by heat in a way that suggests it is not a recent creation. On the other hand, we have the entirety of the established scientific consensus regarding human evolution and migration. This consensus, built upon more than a century of fossil discoveries, genetic studies, and archaeological evidence from around the globe, states with a very high degree of certainty that the Nampa image simply cannot be 2 million years old. This creates a binary choice with profound implications. Either the initial report of the figurine's discovery was flawed in some fundamental way, or the figurine is genuine, and our entire understanding of human history is catastrophically wrong. The scientific and archaeological establishment has, for the most part, dismissed the Nampa image, consigning it to the fringes of inquiry. The mainstream position argues that the figurine's reported provenance is far more likely to be an error than the entire field of paleoanthropology. Several plausible, non-sensational explanations have been proposed to account for the discovery. The most common suggestion is that the figurine did not originate from the 300-foot level. It could have been a much more recent artifact, perhaps created by Native American inhabitants of the area, a few hundred or a few thousand years ago. It may have been lying on the surface near the wellhead and accidentally fallen down the borehole during the drilling operation. Alternatively, it could have been washed down the hole by the action of the water pump, or it could have fallen from a higher, younger geological layer as the drill passed through it. In this scenario, the men at the site were not lying, but were simply mistaken in their belief that the object came from the very bottom of the hole. Another possibility, which must always be considered in such cases, is that the object was a deliberate hoax. It is conceivable that one of the workers planted the figurine as a practical joke on his colleagues, or that the story was later embellished to create a local sensation. While there is no direct evidence of a hoax, and the individuals involved were considered reputable, the history of archaeology is littered with famous forgeries, and the possibility can never be entirely discounted. The Nampa image was also briefly examined by a prominent geologist of the time, G.F. Wright, who was a proponent of the idea that humans had existed in the Americas for much longer than was commonly accepted. His enthusiastic promotion of the find has led some critics to suggest that a degree of confirmation bias may have influenced the early investigation of the artifact. Despite these strong and logical objections from the scientific community, proponents of the Nampa image's authenticity argue that the mainstream explanations are dismissive and do not adequately address the specific details of the discovery. They point out that the foreman, Mr. Kurtz, was adamant that his machinery was sealed and that it would have been impossible for an object from the surface to fall down the borehole. They also argue that the clay of the figurine appears to be consistent with the clay layer from which it was reportedly excavated. Furthermore, the objects show signs of significant age, including the aforementioned iron oxide stains and the heat-altered quartz grains, which suggests it is not a modern or recent creation. These supporters, often from the creationist or alternative archaeology communities, see the Nampa image as a powerful piece of evidence that challenges the dogma of evolutionary theory and a uniformitarian view of geology. For them, the figurine is not an anomaly to be explained away. It is a forbidden artifact, a clue to a lost history of humanity that mainstream science refuses to acknowledge. This debate places the Nampa image in a state of perpetual limbo. It is too controversial and too poorly provenance to be accepted by mainstream archaeology, yet the story of its discovery is too specific and intriguing to be dismissed entirely. It has become a classic example of an OOP art, an object whose significance is defined almost entirely by its contested context. Without the story of it being found at a depth of 300 feet, the Nampa image would be a minor, though interesting, piece of prehistoric art. With that story, it becomes a potential paradigm buster. The core of the problem is that the object's extraordinary claim evidence of 2-million-year-old human artistry requires extraordinary evidence. A single small figurine, recovered during a commercial drilling operation over a century ago with no modern archaeological controls, does not meet that high standard of proof. Ultimately, the Nampa image is a mystery that is likely to remain unsolved. The object itself still exists, housed at the Idaho State Historical Society, but further scientific analysis is unlikely to resolve the central question of its origin. We can analyze the clay, we can study the craftsmanship, but we can never definitively prove or disprove the story of how it was found in 1889. The Nampa image, therefore, stands as a fascinating case study in the nature of scientific evidence and the conflict between anomalous data and established paradigms. It is a cautionary tale about the importance of rigorous archaeological context and a persistent, nagging question mark in the margins of the human story. Is it a simple mistake, a clever hoax, or a genuine clue that our history is far deeper and more mysterious than we currently believe? The answer depends entirely on what you choose to accept: the testimony of a handful of men at a well in Idaho, or the vast and consistent body of evidence that has built our modern understanding of the human past. Carved into the rolling chalk hills of Oxfordshire, England, is one of Britain's most iconic and mysterious ancient monuments, the Uffington White Horse. This is not a natural feature, but a massive geoglyph, a work of land art created by digging deep trenches into the hillside and filling them with crushed white chalk, creating a brilliant white figure that stands in stark contrast to the green turf surrounding it. The figure itself is enormous, measuring approximately 360 feet, 110 meters, from head to tail. It is a highly stylized, almost abstract depiction of a horse, composed of elegant, flowing lines that give it a sense of motion and energy. Scientific dating of the soil from the trenches has placed its creation in the Late Bronze Age, around 1000 BC, making it the oldest of Britain's hillside figures. For 3,000 years, this enigmatic creature has galloped silently across the English landscape, but its original purpose, its meaning, and the reasons for its remarkable survival remain profound and captivating mysteries. The first and most striking mystery of the Uffington White Horse is its unique perspective. From up close, standing on the hillside next to it, the figure is almost incomprehensible. The trenches are visible, but the overall shape is distorted and foreshortened, making it difficult to discern the form of a horse at all. The figure was clearly designed to be seen from a distance. However, unlike many other hill figures that are best viewed from the valley below, the Uffington horse is positioned in such a way that its most coherent and complete view is from the air, looking down from the sky above. This has led to the perplexing question of how and why a Bronze Age society, without any means of flight, would create a massive piece of art that could only be fully appreciated from a perspective they could never achieve. This has inevitably given rise to speculative theories involving extraterrestrial visitors, suggesting the figure was a signpost for ancient astronauts. Mainstream archaeology, however, rejects these ideas, offering more grounded explanations. One theory is that the bird's-eye view was a conceptual one, intended for the gods. The horse may have been a tribute or offering to a sky deity, and it was therefore designed to be seen by the gods looking down from the heavens, not by humans on the ground. Another, more practical theory suggests that the best vantage point was not from the sky, but from the opposite side of the valley, on a hill several miles away. From this distant perspective, the distorted figure would resolve into a more recognizable horse shape. It is possible that this distant hill was another sacred site, and the horse was created as a symbolic link between the two locations. The second core mystery is the meaning of the figure itself. While it is referred to as a horse, Its highly stylized and abstract form has led to some debate. Some have suggested it could be a dog or some other mythological beast. However, the general consensus, supported by comparisons with horse motifs on coins and other artifacts from the British Iron Age, is that it does indeed represent a horse. But what did the horse symbolize to the people who created it? Most scholars believe it was likely a tribal emblem, the symbol of the local clan or tribe that inhabited the region. The nearby Uffington Castle, an Iron Age hill fort, suggests that this area was the territory of a powerful and well-organized group. The white horse would have been a massive, permanent declaration of their identity and their ownership of the land, a powerful symbol visible for miles around. An alternative religious interpretation suggests that the figure is not just a tribal mascot, but a representation of a deity. The horse was a powerful and important animal in Celtic and pre-Celtic mythology, often associated with gods and goddesses of fertility, war, and the sun. The Uffington horse could be an effigy of a horse goddess like the Celtic Epona, though she is from a later period. A powerful deity whose worship was central to the spiritual life of the community. The creation of such a massive figure would have been a profound act of devotion, and the site would have been a major center for religious rituals and ceremonies. Perhaps the most remarkable mystery of all is the Uffington white horse's survival. A figure made of crushed chalk in shallow trenches is not a permanent structure. Left to the elements, it would become overgrown with grass and fade into the hillside in a matter of decades. The fact that the horse is still visible today means that it has been continuously maintained for 3,000 years. This maintenance involved a periodic community ritual known as scouring or cleaning the horse, where local people would gather to redig the trenches and replenish the chalk. This tradition is documented in historical records dating back to the medieval period, and likely stretches back in an unbroken chain to the Bronze Age itself. This raises a fascinating question. Why did generations of people separated by thousands of years and vast cultural changes from the Bronze Age, through the Iron Age, Roman, Saxon, and Norman periods, all the way to the present day continue to invest their time and labor in maintaining a figure whose original meaning was almost certainly lost to them? The most likely answer is that the ritual of scouring the horse became more important than the horse itself. The tradition was passed down from generation to generation, and the act of coming together as a community to clean the ancient symbol became a vital part of local identity and social cohesion. The horse became a focal point for festivals and fairs, a tradition that was maintained simply because it had always been done. The Uffington white horse, therefore, is more than just a piece of prehistoric art. It is a living monument to the power of tradition and the continuity of community, a 3,000-year-old promise kept by countless generations, even long after they had forgotten why the promise was made. In the arid, windswept plains of southeastern Iran lies the sprawling archaeological site of Shari Sukte, or the Burnt City. This massive Bronze Age metropolis, which flourished between 3200 and 1800 BC, was one of the most advanced and complex urban centers of its time, a testament to a sophisticated civilization that existed at the crossroads of ancient Mesopotamia and the Indus Valley. The city's remarkably dry climate has resulted in an extraordinary level of organic preservation, providing archaeologists with a unique window into the daily lives of its inhabitants. Among the thousands of fascinating discoveries made at the site, one object stands out as utterly unique and technologically astonishing: a prosthetic eyeball found in the grave of a high-status woman. This discovery is not just a medical curiosity. It is a profound testament to a level of craftsmanship and anatomical understanding that was previously thought to be impossible for a society that existed nearly 5,000 years ago, challenging our entire conception of the origins of medical technology. The discovery was made during the excavation of a burial in the city's extensive necropolis. The skeleton belonged to a woman who was unusually tall for her time, standing at nearly 6 feet. She was clearly a person of high status, buried with ornate pottery, bronze mirrors, and other valuable grave goods. As archaeologists carefully cleaned the skull, they made a startling finding. Tucked within her left eye socket was an artificial eyeball. The initial assumption was that it might be a later, intrusive object, but closer examination revealed that it was perfectly positioned and had been there at the time of her burial, around 2900 BC. The woman had not just been buried with the object, she had worn it in life. The central mystery of this discovery lies in the object's incredible sophistication. This was not a simple plug of wood or stone designed to fill an empty socket. It was a highly advanced, custom-made prosthetic, a fusion of artistry and medical engineering that is breathtaking in its complexity. The eyeball itself is hemispherical in shape, perfectly formed to fit comfortably within the orbital cavity. It is made from a very lightweight material, identified as a mixture of bitumen paste, a natural tar, and animal fat. The choice of this material was ingenious, as it would have been both durable and light enough to be worn without causing significant discomfort. The surface of the hemisphere is meticulously polished to a smooth, almost lifelike sheen. What is truly extraordinary, however, is the intricate decoration on the front of the prosthetic. The ancient artisans who created it did not just make a blank hemisphere. They recreated the appearance of a living eye. In the center of the prosthetic, they carefully engraved a circle to represent the iris. From this central iris, a series of incredibly fine lines, almost as thin as human hairs, radiate outwards towards the edge of the hemisphere. These lines were created using gold wire with a thickness of less than half a millimeter. They were designed to simulate the capillaries of the eye, giving the prosthetic a stunningly realistic and vibrant appearance. The level of detail and precision is microscopic, a feat of microcraftsmanship that would be challenging even with modern tools. Furthermore, the creators of the prosthetic had considered the practicalities of how it would be worn. On either side of the hemisphere, they drilled 2 tiny holes. Microscopic analysis of these holes revealed traces of wear, indicating that a fine golden thread or cord had been passed through them. This cord would have been used to hold the prosthetic securely in place, much like the band of a modern eye patch. The woman would have been able to tie the prosthetic around her head, ensuring it would not fall out during her daily activities. This was not just a decorative object to be used at her funeral. It was a functional medical device, designed for long-term use by a living person. The discovery of the burnt city eyeball presents a number of profound and unanswered questions. The first and most obvious is how a society from 5,000 years ago possessed the technical knowledge to create such an object. The production of the bitumen paste required a sophisticated understanding of materials science, involving the heating and mixing of different substances to achieve the desired lightness and durability. The engraving of the iris and the inlaying of the microscopic gold wires for the capillaries required a level of artistic skill and fine motor control that is simply staggering for the period. It suggests the existence of highly specialized artisans who possessed not only incredible talent, but also specialized tools that we have not yet discovered. The second mystery is the level of medical and anatomical knowledge it implies. The creation of a comfortable, wearable prosthetic requires an understanding of the shape of the eye socket and the way the human eye moves. The artisans who made this object must have worked closely with the woman, perhaps taking measurements or creating a mold of her eye socket to ensure a perfect fit. This suggests a doctor-patient relationship and a level of personalized medical care that is far more advanced than the rudimentary medicine we typically associate with the Bronze Age. The fact that the woman lived for a significant period of time after losing her eye, as evidenced by the healing of the bone around the socket, and wore the prosthetic long enough to leave wear marks on it, indicates a successful long-term medical intervention. The burnt city eyeball remains a completely unique find. No other object of similar complexity or sophistication has been discovered from this time period anywhere in the world. This makes its existence even more puzzling. Was this a one-of-a-kind creation, the work of a single brilliant artisan doctor who was centuries ahead of his time? Or does it represent a lost tradition of advanced prosthetic technology that was practiced in the burnt city, of which we have only found a single example? The city was a major trade hub, and it is possible that this technology was developed there, or perhaps imported from another, as yet undiscovered center of ancient medical innovation. The leading theory is that the woman was a person of immense power and importance, perhaps a queen, a high priestess, or a revered shaman. Only a person of such status would have been able to command the incredible resources, time, and skill necessary to create such a masterpiece. The golden rays emanating from the iris might have had a symbolic meaning, perhaps suggesting she had a divine gaze, or the ability to see into the spirit world. The prosthetic was not just intended to restore her appearance. It was likely a powerful symbol of her unique status and spiritual authority. The Burning City eyeball is a humbling discovery. It forces us to reconsider our linear, progressive view of history, and to acknowledge the incredible heights of technical and artistic achievement that were possible in the ancient world. It is a silent testament to the ingenuity of our ancestors, and a powerful reminder that the past is full of technological wonders that can still challenge and astonish us today. Deep within the lush, tropical jungles of Costa Rica, specifically in the Diquis Delta region near the Pacific coast, lies a collection of artifacts that are as perfectly formed as they are profoundly mysterious. These are the stone spheres of Costa Rica, known locally as Las Bolas. This is not a single monument, but a collection of over 300 massive stone balls, ranging in size from just a few centimeters in diameter to enormous spheres over 2 meters, 6.6 feet, across and weighing up to 16 tons. Carved with an astonishing degree of precision by the indigenous peoples who inhabited this region between approximately 600 AD and 1500 AD, just before the arrival of the Spanish, these spheres represent a unique and powerful form of monumental sculpture. Despite their undeniable artistry and the immense labor required for their creation, their original purpose, their method of construction, and the meaning behind them have been almost completely lost to time, leaving them as one of the most iconic and baffling archaeological enigmas of the Americas. The first and most immediate mystery surrounding the spheres is their remarkable construction. The vast majority of them are carved from gabbro, a hard igneous rock similar to granite. The ancient artisans who created them somehow managed to shape this incredibly hard stone into almost perfectly spherical forms, using only the primitive tools available to them, such as other harder stones. The level of precision they achieved is astounding. Many of the larger spheres are so perfectly round that modern measurements show deviations of only a few millimeters from a perfect sphere. How a pre-industrial society, without any metal chisels, lathes, or advanced measuring equipment, could achieve such a high degree of mathematical and sculptural precision is a profound technological puzzle. The leading theory among archaeologists is that the process was a long and painstaking one, involving a combination of controlled fracturing, pecking, and grinding. The artisans would have started with a large, roughly shaped boulder. Using their knowledge of the stone's natural fracture lines, they would have chipped away large pieces to get it closer to a spherical shape. Then, using smaller, harder handstones, they would have spent countless hours pecking away at the surface, slowly and meticulously removing small imperfections. The final stage would have involved grinding and polishing the surface with sand or leather to achieve its smooth, finished texture. While this process is theoretically plausible, the level of skill, patience, and sustained effort required is difficult to overstate. It would have taken years, perhaps even a lifetime, to create a single one of the largest spheres. This immense investment of labor clearly indicates that the spheres held a position of supreme importance in the culture that created them. The second, and even deeper, mystery is the purpose and meaning of the spheres. What drove this ancient culture to dedicate so much energy to creating these perfect, abstract forms? When they were first systematically studied by archaeologists in the 1940s, the spheres were found arranged in specific patterns. Some were laid out in straight or curved lines. Others were grouped into triangles or parallelograms, and some were positioned in clusters. Crucially, many of these arrangements appeared to have astronomical significance. Some lines of spheres were found to point towards magnetic north, while others seemed to be aligned with the sunrise on the winter or summer solstices. This has led to the prominent theory that the spheres were a form of astronomical observatory or calendar, a massive three-dimensional tool used by priests or shamans to track the movements of the sun, moon, and stars, and to mark important dates for rituals and agriculture. The arrangements could have been a way of mapping the cosmos on the Earth, creating a sacred landscape that mirrored the order of the heavens. Another powerful theory suggests that the spheres were powerful symbols of rank and status. They were often found near the foundations of what are believed to be the houses of chieftains or other important individuals. A larger, more perfectly formed sphere would have been a clear and unmistakable symbol of the owner's power, wealth, and influence. It was a form of conspicuous consumption, a way for the elite to display their ability to command the immense labor and specialized skill required for the sphere's creation. The arrangements of spheres could have represented the political relationships between different towns or chiefdoms, a map of power and lineage inscribed upon the landscape. Tragically, our ability to definitively test these theories has been almost completely destroyed. Since their discovery, the vast majority of the spheres have been moved from their original locations. Lured by local myths of hidden gold inside the spheres, treasure hunters have cracked many of them open, only to find solid stone. Others have been moved by farmers clearing land for agriculture, or taken as decorative objects to adorn the lawns and gardens of wealthy landowners and government buildings. This has resulted in the almost total loss of their original archaeological context. Without knowing precisely where and how the spheres were originally arranged, it is nearly impossible to reconstruct their astronomical alignments or their social significance. The Great Stone Library of the Dequas Delta has had its pages torn out and scattered, leaving us with only the beautiful enigmatic words, but no way to read the sentences they once formed. This loss of context has also allowed more fanciful, pseudoscientific theories to flourish. Writers have proposed that the spheres were created by a lost civilization like Atlantis, or that they are evidence of extraterrestrial visitors, who used them as navigational beacons or energy devices. These theories, while popular in some circles, have no basis in scientific evidence. The spheres are made of local stone, and their creation, while impressive, is consistent with the capabilities of a well-organized pre-industrial society. The real mystery of the Costa Rican spheres is not about aliens or lost cities. It is about the lost beliefs and intentions of the very real and very talented indigenous people who created them. They are a silent, beautiful, and frustrating testament to a culture whose worldview is now beyond our reach. A perfect spherical question mark, left behind in the heart of the jungle. In the windswept coastal region of Brittany in northwestern France lies the largest and densest collection of megalithic stones in the world. Known as the Karnak stones, this is not a single, contained monument like Stonehenge, but a vast and sprawling archaeological landscape composed of more than 3,000 prehistoric standing stones, or menhirs. Erected by the Neolithic farming communities who inhabited this area between 4500 and 3300 BC, the Karnak complex represents an astonishing feat of engineering and coordinated labor that span generations. The stones are arranged into various distinct groups, the most famous of which are the alignment's long, remarkably straight, parallel rows of stones that march across the countryside for several miles. The sheer scale of this undertaking is breathtaking, but its purpose remains one of archaeology's most profound and enduring enigmas. Why did an ancient people dedicate centuries of effort to quarrying, transporting, and erecting thousands of massive stones in these precise linear patterns? The central mystery of the Karnak stones is one of overwhelming scale and baffling intent. The main alignments, such as those at Lemenek and Kermerio, consist of 10 to 13 parallel rows of stones. These rows stretch for more than a kilometer, with the individual stones graded by size, the largest ones, some standing up to 13 feet high, at the western end, gradually diminishing in height towards the east. This deliberate grading demonstrates a clear, overarching design and a high level of planning. The effort involved is difficult to overstate. Each of the 3,000 stones had to be quarried from the local granite bedrock, moved often for considerable distances, using nothing more than log rollers, ropes, and immense human and animal power, and then set upright in a carefully prepared socket. This was not the work of a single generation, but a sustained multi-generational project that required a powerful and stable social structure to organize and direct the labor. The fundamental question is, what purpose could possibly have been so important as to command such a monumental and long-term investment of a society's resources and energy? One of the most prominent and heavily debated theories is that the Karnak alignments constituted a massive Neolithic observatory. The late Alexander Thom, a Scottish engineering professor who spent decades meticulously surveying megalithic sites, argued that the rows and other features of the Karnak complex were deliberately aligned to significant astronomical events. He proposed that the lines were used as a giant graphical tool for tracking the complex movements of the Sun and particularly the Moon. The different rows could have been used as sightlines to mark the northernmost and southernmost risings and settings of the Moon, which follow a complex 18.6-year cycle. In this interpretation, Karnak was a sophisticated scientific instrument, a megalithic computer, used by a priestly or shamanic class to predict eclipses, mark solstices, and maintain a precise ritual calendar. This theory is compelling because it provides a functional explanation for the precise, geometric layout of the stones. However, many archaeologists remain skeptical, arguing that the sheer number of stones and rows is far more than would be needed for a simple observatory, and that some of the proposed alignments could be the result of chance and pattern seeking. A second major theory suggests a primarily religious and ceremonial function. Instead of being a scientific instrument to be looked at, the alignments were a sacred space to be moved through. The long, parallel rows would have formed grand ceremonial avenues or procession ways. The community would have gathered to participate in religious processions, perhaps moving from the smaller stones in the east to the larger, more imposing stones in the west, with each stage of the journey marking a different part of the ritual. The alignments could have been connected to ancestor veneration, with each stone representing a deceased individual or an ancestral lineage, creating a massive, permanent memorial to the community's dead. In this view, Karnak was not an observatory, but a vast open-air temple, a sacred landscape designed to host the most important social and religious rituals of the people who built it. The layout would have been designed to manage the movement of large crowds and to create a powerful, immersive spiritual experience. A more recent and provocative theory combines elements of both, suggesting the alignments were a response to a changing world. Some researchers have noted that the construction of the Karnak alignments coincides with a period of rising sea levels following the last ice age. They propose that the rows of stones could be a massive monument to a lost world, a memorial to the lands and settlements that were being slowly submerged by the advancing sea. The lines pointing towards the old coastline could be a symbolic attempt to halt the rising waters or a prayer to the gods to save their ancestral lands. Another seismic theory suggests the alignments were designed to predict or mitigate the effects of earthquakes, which are known to occur in the region. The stones, acting as a giant seismograph, could have been used to monitor the Earth's tremors. Ultimately, the true purpose of the Karnak stones remains elusive. The people who built them left behind no written records, and the acidic soil of Brittany has preserved few organic artifacts that could provide clues to their daily lives or beliefs. The stones themselves are silent, offering no easy answers. They are a powerful testament to the capacity of early human societies to organize themselves, to cooperate on a massive scale, and to create enduring monuments based on a shared and deeply held worldview. The mystery of Karnak is not just about the function of the stones. It is about the mind of Neolithic man, a mind that could conceive of and execute a project of such breathtaking ambition. The long, silent rows of granite stand as a permanent and humbling reminder of the vast and profound gap in our understanding of our own distant past. These discoveries are not failures of archaeology, but invitations to curiosity. They remind us that the past is not a closed book, but a landscape filled with mysteries that still wait for a new idea or a new discovery to unlock them. Thanks for exploring with Ancient Relics Keeper. Stay curious, question everything, and remember the truth is often buried deeper than we think.